Good evening, everyone. I am Chris Malika Bhadra, and I welcome you all to another episode of Chai, Chat, and Community on Word Palette. Tonight, I'm with Pritha Sen. I'll not speak about her because she will tell you all about herself, but in very short words, she's all in one. So she is a writer, she's a singer, I've been told. She's an educator, a fabulous cook, and so much more on top of that. But what drew me to her was her resilience and strength and grit and courage, which is beyond example and exemplary. And you all will soon. Preeta, this brings me great honor and pleasure to have you with us tonight. And thank you for doing this with me. And I'd like to welcome you on this episode. And before I start, please tell us about.
I didn't catch, your voice is breaking. I didn't catch the last bit. Tell you about?
I said, I said thank you for joining us tonight. And please tell us about yourself, your journey.
Well, first of all, let me thank you for having me on the show. It came as a real surprise because everybody wants me to talk about food all the time. I research food, so people, and I do food history. So it's mainly, that whenever people want to talk to me, it's about my food. You're the first person who's asked me about myself. So, hello everybody, and I'm Pritha. I live in Gurgaon. At the moment, I'm in Calcutta, and I'm well and truly locked down here. All of you must have heard about the COVID situation in our country, and it's tense times. And but on a positive note, I know that we are constantly now bowed down under uh, sad news all over. Lots of lives and lots of people that we held dear to us. But on the positive side, as I see for myself, uh, this is also something that I could see, I could experience, I'm a student of history, and I've studied and I've read about what in Bengali we call Mahamari, and in English we call pandemic. I've read about it about 100 years ago. I've read about, you know, the plague, the Spanish flu, and how people drop like flies. And I am now witnessing it all. That in the 21st century, we had thought that we had conquered it all with science, technology, modern medicine, but with nature and the universe has shown us that it's the same. You can do whatever you want, but you can't control nature. It's the same,
Exactly. Yeah.
you know. And it is a microcosm of, or rather, it's a macrocosm of us human beings in the microcosm of our lives. There are things that we think that we can change, but it takes such a long time to change, and it is constantly an uphill struggle. And the struggle that I talk about is about being a woman, uh, single woman. Perhaps makes it worse, but being a woman itself is still a struggle in today's world. And to
Exactly.
tell you a bit about myself is that uh, I had a very happy childhood. We were three sisters, and we were never made to feel that, I mean, there could have been a son. And we are a family of women. I mean, we have more women in the family than men, and family of strong women. We were progressive, and education was very important, and each of us had our own position and place in the family. There was never anything about, this one is better than you or that one is better than you. No, of course. when Ma got into one of her moods, she would say, "Okay, you know, you're that one will go through with flying colors. You're going to fail like you've never failed before." So those were the things, but otherwise it was a completely happy family, happy childhood. It was only when I stepped out that I realized that life is very different outside the four walls.
Yep.
But I
Yep.
could have anticipated, because even when we were such a progressive family, and we mostly were allowed to do most things that a lot of people, a lot of girls my age at that time were not allowed to do, even then there was this entire leitmotif of uh, you have to get married. Huh? You study, you get a job if you want to. By a certain age, you must get married. And there was also this thing about, oh, you have these big plans, you do whatever you want to do after you get married. But nobody told
Yeah.
us that after you got married, you were in complete bondage. Hmm. You were complete bondage, because then now you were in control of another person, another family, you know, where and you had no control over that family. In your own family, you have control. The other family, you don't have control. So it is all about control. So when I was thrown into that situation, I realized that I was losing complete control of my life.
Hmm.
So anyway, to come back to what I've done, so I started my career. You know, I had no ambition. I was a completely ambitionless person. I just wanted to be, and I did a lot of music. I liked being independent, so I started working very young. While I was still studying, I started working. That
Hmm.
too fell on my lap, and I would do early morning school, and then I would go to college. I would have a blast. I would go for my music rehearsals or any other activity I was involved with. I would sometimes do social work. I would go and help out in with certain organizations. So my life was very full, and so I started with teaching, if it a formal. But before that, from the age of 17, I was doing tuitions. I was doing summer jobs like door to door selling. I was constantly occupied. And then, while still in college, I started teaching, and then I taught for quite a while, and then I got married, and
Hmm.
then we were posted to Bangalore. There, I was jobless. I didn't know what I should be doing, and all of that. When I again got an offer to teach in this school, one of the first. This was the mid 80s, so one of the first integrated schools to have come up in Bangalore, with able and challenged children. And the challenged children range from having psychiatric problems to physical disabilities. And it was a really challenging job, but a whole new world opened up for me.
Yeah.
And I took a short course also, and it was really very rewarding. So after I came back, and then suddenly transferred back to Calcutta, I went back into teaching, but that didn't interest me anymore. And Calcutta still, and I wanted to kind of work towards opening up something of my own, an activity class or something for challenged children.
Hmm.
Um, but at that point in time, my life changed again. I decided that I had had enough of not being in control of my own life, and
Yeah.
I kind of broke up the marriage. I walked out, and I started doing some freelance work, and then finally I got a job as a journalist. And then that's then again, journalism is a very high pressure job, and you kind of you need to do things that you actually don't want to do.
Yep.
And for me, I've never really been able to do things with full commitment if I really didn't want to do it. But it
Mm.
was important that I set myself up first, you know, make my own, the ground under my
Exactly.
own feet strong enough for me to be able
Mm.
to do that. Because, my parents were extremely supportive. My family, my greater family, everybody, they were all very supportive. I mean, I've been asked questions that, weren't your parents upset? Didn't they ask you to go back? I haven't, there was not a single time. I mean, everybody respected my decision. And so I had that support, and with that I soldiered on. And once I thought that the ground under my feet was strong enough, I quit mainstream journalism. I continued writing, but I joined the development sector. I realized that my
Mm.
heart lay there, and I joined the development sector and the microfinance movement that was taking off in India at that time. And I was very, very fortunate to have worked with, been associated with many of the stalwarts of the time, the pioneers in the microfinance movement in India. And that took me to remote places, and I, you know, discovered rural India, real India, the the women, you know, of India, and the way they live. And I learned many valuable lessons in resilience,
Yeah.
because life is very, very tough in rural India, and especially if you are disadvantaged. And but the resilience and burden of the family, of life, is always on women. And
Mm.
it is the resilience of the women really inspired me. And I would say that it is from there that each time I have felt that I was slipping in life, I have found my strength. And so I worked in this sector for quite a while. And slowly I found that when I used to stay with them, I used to spend time with them. And the best way, and to work there, you have to earn trust. You have to earn credibility. You just can't
Yeah.
suddenly walk in there and say that I've come here to empower you, or I've come here to teach you, or if you do this and say you'll make a lot of money. Nobody's going to, so you have to
Believe me. Yeah.
earn their trust. And the best way to earn the trust of women, actually, is to sit down with them on the kitchen floor while they're working and start a conversation. That is a very basic, and it is totally the woman's own space,
Niche. Yeah. Yeah.
especially in these rural areas. Huh? The kitchen is the woman's own space. And there, slowly, and while they worked and they spoke to me, I started watching them. And I realized that, the indigenous wisdom of our people in the way that we eat, that we used to eat in India, was extremely scientific. Food was not something to be had mindlessly like we do today.
Mm.
Suddenly there's been a food explosion, and everybody's cooking, everybody's eating, everybody's posting, everybody's boasting about what they've had, and whatever. In India, The wisdom regarding food was totally different. It had a meaning. Everything had a meaning. It was a preventive. It was a curative. It was considered sacred. Yeah. Therefore, we did not waste. We ate certain things at certain times, seasonal, and which is why India, being at one time a very, very poor country, now we are a developing nation, and I don't know what COVID will do to us once again, slide back into that kind of poverty. Why and how our people have survived. So I started looking very closely at food, and that's where my journey into food space started.
Starting. Hmm.
Yes, and I don't cook to feed. I cook to teach. I cook to make people aware, and I to tell them a story, the story behind the dish, huh? And so that they go back home and they think about it and they think that, what she had made, I didn't quite like. But it was interesting because there's something like that used to be made in our house. Let me ask my Hakuma, my grandmother, or my Mashi, or my mother.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
Huh? So that is how my journey in food began. And all through, I was writing and I was working. So that's about me.
So Samira says looking fabulous is always CM. So I guess CM is something that you and Samira are privy to. So I'm not going to ask
Yeah,
elaborate
yeah,
on that. You
yeah.
know what she's writing, so all good.
My nickname's Chumki. She calls me Chumki Masi. Short form is CM.
All right. Raka says looking fabulous, Pritha Sen.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Raka, for tuning in. And Nandita Amin says rockstar Pritha. Yeah, I agree. Pritha,
Nandita,
so for
again,
the first 15
again,
minutes, I'm
you should
totally
speak
taken.
to Nandita. You should speak to Nandita. She's another woman who really inspires me. Huh? She's a single woman and lives on her own terms completely.
I don't mind talking. If she would love to talk to me, I'm happy to have her on. Nandita, I'll reach out to you soon. All right. Coming back to you, Pita. So I'm already inspired, and I'm sure many listeners have already kind of taken notes while you were referring to your life. Um, sorry, Rohit Ashwa says Pita D and a heart emoji. So I am guessing he's known to you. So thank you for watching. Uh, widely written about in India. So, according to you, if I have to throw this question to you, what makes you stand out from others, in your opinion? Where do you get your mojo from in life?
Well, I've kept, like people have told me, and now I do realize, yes, I've kept reinventing myself. It basically, I think, comes from a very lazy gene in me, where routine bores me. When something
Hmm.
becomes like you're doing by rote, that's when, according to me, all my creativity dies. Huh?
Hmm.
And I do not enjoy what I'm doing. I'm unhappy. And that's when I start looking for something new to do. But the past experience is not lost, because you keep connecting the dots, and as you move on, you that experience that you've gathered in your past work,
Hmm.
field of
Hmm.
work, or other experiences, you carry on to the next, and that's what gives that more weightage and more confidence for me to do
Yeah.
that. So my mojo comes from a eureka moment, because once I get bored of what I'm doing, this is a cycle with me. I go into a kind of a depression,
Hmm.
and I become very insular, and I like to kind of mull over and think, okay, so this is the end. I I just don't like doing this, and now, but why am I doing it? Huh? And then suddenly, somewhere, an opportunity comes, and I kind of grab it, and then
Nice.
my journey begins all over again. It's again an uphill task, but that uphill task is what I think I enjoy the most. So and that's
Yeah,
that's how my mojo.
Prita, there is one thing that I have been. All right, sorry. Before I get to the next question, Deepak here says, "Do bring your food journey to Melbourne sometime when things get better." I hope that will be soon. Yes, Deepak, have our fingers crossed too. Thank you for Prita, something that I have been asked quite a lot of times. People say that human is a prey of pattern. Humans tend to follow a pattern, like you study, you get work, get married. So that's a circle of life that you're bound to complete. Blah blah blah. I don't agree, because for me, if you don't have 10 different things, you've got one life, right? I don't want to die with regrets on my deathbed. How would you like to answer that question? That are we really made up of our waste life? Are we cliche to that, or can we break out from that mindset?
No, that's stereotyping. Human beings have themselves stereotyped themselves. That's
Mm,
stereotyping. See, I'll tell you, as a single woman, like you've promoted this event as the Chronicles of a Single Woman. So instead of using just woman, I sometimes use single woman. Uh, there's some stock questions that I've faced in life. Is first question, which was very amusing, was, so what do you eat? who, who cooks for you? Meaning, a single woman is it's
cannot
only
cook.
married women who know how to cook. A single woman lives on Maggie and tomato sauce. I mean, that's the idea. Huh? That
Yeah.
so you see the stereotype that unmarried girls are not expected to know how to cook, but
Mm,
once you're married, you're expected to know, and now they're confused about a single woman. I mean, she's unmarried, but yet she's so much older. She's past the marriageable age. Now what happens to her? Huh? And so now how does
exactly.
she survive? Huh? Someone once told me, and I had taken big offense to that. Once said that uh, you have no problems, you lead a hostel life. I had a house to run, I had a job to keep, I was entertaining. Huh? I had house guests. I had parents to look after who would come. I mean, what was this? Where was this hostel life coming? Huh? So you have these uh, preconceived notions
Yeah.
in your mind, and which again can get worse for single women. And I've kind of, in case I forget, I've made a few points, like I've just told you about the food bit. Uh, so when I moved from Calcutta to Delhi, and Delhi being all about the North Indian, and women being not so respected there, and this was like almost 30 years ago that I had moved to Delhi, and I would come back home and cry because nobody was willing to give me a house.
Yeah. Mm,
Say that हम अकेले लड़कियों को मकान नहीं देते हैं.
exactly.
So
Yeah.
you're
Mm,
branded scarlet because you were single. So
mm,
at that time it was really difficult to
yeah.
face. And then at the workplace. Now this is something that I had never really believed in, because I had come from a very protected kind of Calcutta, respected women. And I used to work for Anand Bazar Patrika, and I never faced. Of course, I was much older when I joined work, because, like I said, I had no specific ambition. So when I left my husband, I realized I had to get a job,
Well,
a proper
mm,
job, not freelance writing. So when I joined, I was still very protected, and perhaps maybe I was not that young, so but I was still young. I was 30, 29, 30. Huh.
Mm.
But when I came to Delhi, that was the first time I realized that sometimes it would just escape me, and then later I would realize, oh, this was not a very nice thing to have told me. So, but there was this thing. Um, if I was angry, later on I've heard people say, poor thing, she's very frustrated. Huh. If I was cheerful and talking to someone very pleasantly and laughing and joking, uh, it would be women are always looking. I mean, single women are
Yeah.
always looking for it. In fact, I had a boss, a drunk boss. He wasn't my immediate boss, but he was boss uh, status, hierarchy.
Yep.
Uh,
Mm.
Come back from the press club, stand in front of me, rocking on his heels and saying, Pritha, we were having this huge discussion at the club today that women over 30 are always looking for it. Okay. If I was quiet, if I was quiet, it was, oh, she's had such a sad life and is so lonely, huh? And she's in depression. So you could never win.
Exactly. Yeah.
You could never win. And these are the things I have faced. I've faced worse, and but I have not let it pass. I have
Mm.
not taken it lying down. I think
Yeah.
one should have, and I think that courage in me comes from the fact that I was not scared of men. I
Mm.
uh, I went to a co-ed school. I went to a co-ed college, and I mean, the major part of my gang were boys, and
Yep.
but I was not a tomboy. I was not definitely. I liked being a woman. I liked dressing up. I liked doing everything that any woman does, and uh, I wasn't scared. I wasn't scared of that, and
This,
so
now
I
you
did
go
not
on.
take I did not take it lying down.
Mm.
And there was a case that was definitely sexual harassment at one of my workplaces, where uh, there was this office party, and I always wear saris. I like
Yeah.
wearing my sari, and I wore saris always at the workplace too. And so I was dancing. Everyone was dancing. I was dancing, and the photographer took provocative pictures of my waist and other exposed parts of my body because, in a sari there are, and he
Yeah.
circulated it uh, throughout the office.
Mm.
And I took it up very strongly. I did not uh, uh, bow to it. I made a complaint, and when I found that my complaint was not being taken seriously, and in fact, I was also told by my immediate boss that if you carry this too far, you will be losing the sympathy of the people. You'll be losing sympathy. So I said, no, I don't buy that. I don't buy that at all. And I created a real shindig, and I shamed him in the middle of the entire office, and I demanded an apology
Yeah.
letter
Mm.
to be handed over in front of everybody, or I threatened to go to court. And the Supreme Court had just passed this thing that, if it's because we had no HR or anything, a women redressal cell or anything. And then it was only after the SC thing that offices started having
Mm.
rudimentary kind of. So I've said that, if it's proved, you go to 7 years in jail. And I'd managed to get our hands on some photographs, so I had proof. And so I threatened to go to court. So I've never taken things lying down, and I don't think any woman should. One should not be scared, because as soon as because you think that you may lose your job, and it happens, and there are women who need those jobs, but
Yeah.
there are various ways of handling it. I also
Mm.
needed the job then, but I decided that the more scared I get, the more
Yeah.
you know I kind of
They
step
just kind
back
of,
and
yeah.
pass.
Mm.
This will only get worse.
Yeah.
So
So,
I just created a real shindig, and so it's been tough. It's one has come across, and there are times when one has to also do it diplomatically. You
mm.
can't always be like a bull in a china shop, but you have to develop these skill sets. I call these skill
Exactly.
sets in how to kind of get around situations. But you'll be surprised, since we're talking about the workplace, just like, and that is why, again, I say that it is conditioning, it is stereotyping, and we will have to be careful of not falling into the trap ourselves.
Mm.
Just like
Mm.
when a police women, they are women, they face the same situation at home, but once they get into the uniform, they behave exactly like the men, even with women. Huh?
Yeah.
The lack
Yeah.
of respect, the language, their body language, huh? They behave exactly like men, which is why I have seen the same syndrome in certain women employees, huh? Where uh, they kind of give. Suppose I am there and I have a male colleague. We are at par, but they give the male colleague more importance than the woman.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
Huh?
That,
And they kind of uh, uh, and they can, there's somebody, Shongomitra is commenting. Thank you, Shongomitra. Thank you.
thank you for watching. You're very sweet. Thank you. So,
Thank
Preeta, whatever you said is just, I have, you spoke about women being becoming like pseudo men when they're uniform. Like, I have a very short but interesting thing to tell you, and I would like to gather your 2 cents. So, I was at this cultural gathering, and there was this one woman who comes up and tells me, "Look, you know what? Men are to talk to you." I said, "Why?" And she's like, "The way you put up your sarees, you always put up your sari, you never let your archer pallu down, and that makes you look very intimidating. Which man will want to come and talk to you?" So, has if this situation has ever happened to you, that a woman who you think is a friend has come and kind of sympathized or commented on your dressing so you can be more appealing to a man, has that ever happened? And what should be a woman's response in that situation?
Look, I've the funniest was the two things that happened to me. When I was in Calcutta, like I said, I was much older than the general lot of journalists who had joined
Hmm.
along with me, or they worked because they'd come straight out of college. And I was 30, 30, 31, and they were 21, 22. And they were always in nice modern clothes and short skirts, tight jeans. But I always liked my saris. Huh? So I was always in saris. So one day, um, the boss called me and said, Pierre Cardin is here at the Taj Bengal. Just go and interview him. Huh? This the first interview he's giving, whatever. I said, I can't go like this. Huh? I sent one of them because I was in this cotton printed sari. And he said, no, I'm not going to send any of them. You go. He has to see what an Indian style of dressing is.
Yeah.
Because I had Hindi, I had my sari, I had everything. Cut to Delhi. I was asked, don't people call you a Benji because you wear saris? So I, I said, well, if they do, let them do.
It's
I'm
just,
going to still wear
yeah.
my sari. And then look what happened. The sari revolution came about. Huh? Social media, after 20 years, flooded with wear a sari, show up your sari. Huh? So many
Yeah. Yeah.
sari pages,
Challenges. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
challenges, sari challenge. Huh? So I would always tell women, just stick to being who you are and
Mm.
just march ahead. Just stick to being who you are.
But what would be your advice on all the no unnecessary and not needed sympathy that comes your way for a single woman? That you should do this, you should do that, you should dress up like this, because all everybody at one point of time is just trying to kind of pair you up or just trying to find a potential partner for you. How do you ward off all those people who actually don't have good intentions, but just for the heck of it are kind of coming to your face and saying everything and anything? What would be your advice to
No,
all the
see,
single
see,
finding it?
there's something in psychology called projection.
Yep.
Uh, when you feel this uh, sense of inferiority inside yourself or of not
Mm.
being up to the mark, huh? You project it onto somebody else, and then you start fault.
Mm.
So when people come up and tell you that that you should be doing this and you should be doing that and you should have uh, 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 she's gone offline. I think her net is not
Which
working.
is why I have to come in. Yes,
Yes,
that's okay.
yes. So when you have people telling things like that, I always have this. I feel very amused because it's because 90% of the time I have seen, and I'm not talking about our mothers or aunts' generations. They come from a time when this was the norm, and so I kind of have never minded them saying these things, but very few have actually, and but our generation, the generation after that, when they have said these things, I've been amused because 90% of the time, sometime or the other, the same person has come back to me and said, "You're so lucky. I really envy you. Huh? You are so free. You can do what you want to do when you want to do it. I'm stuck with the children or with the husband or with the in-laws. Oh, how I wish I could be in your shoes." 90% of the time, I've had people coming and saying this. So it's always a case of the grass is greener on the other side. It's not as if I
Always,
haven't
yes.
sometimes felt that I needed a wife, and I'm not gay. Why I say I needed a wife is that, like I've said, that I am not very domesticated. I am footloose and fancy free, and I've sometimes missed having a wife. I say that jokingly. What I mean is a partner or somebody who would be there to help clean up the mess, do my packing, uh, keep my shoes polished, uh, my saris ironed, everything, and I could
Your
just
bindis
breathe in
intact.
and breathe out. Uh, on a more serious note, yes, there have been times that I've thought that a companion would be good, and it's not as if I haven't had relationships. Of course, I've had relationships, and mm, a very funny story comes to mind with this is that one of my aunts, well meaning, she one day came to me and said, you should stop smoking. You smoke too much. And with this very angry look on her face, and it's you should stop immediately. Your uncle will be very angry if he gets to know that you're smoking like this. So I just turned to look at her. And she immediately backtracked. And you know what she said? She said, I know why you smoke so much, because you're so lonely. You've been so
Oh my
lonely
God.
since your marriage broke up. Huh? So it's these are thoughts and ideas that people project onto you. You don't need to get angry or irritated. It's because they themselves are a little frustrated about the way that you're leading your life. Why can't she be like us and stop giving us this complex? Huh?
Agreed.
She's going
Agreed.
on and doing this and she's doing that, and here I am. So, which is why they think the faster they get you married or they get you hitched or they put you into the same position as theirs, they'll be safer. So I've always handled it like that because I've figured out the psychology is working. Some are very
Yeah.
conservative and they think that it's not right. But then
Mm.
that's their problem. That's not my problem.
Exactly. I was once told that, if you stop performing on a public platform, you perform so much, probably that will get you married. And I couldn't help but laugh at that person's face. I'm like, I don't have any words. But I'm mindful of the time, Preetha. Nana writes, you have mentored so many into the food business, Preetha. We watching. Before we
Nana,
wrap up, the last question is, where do you get this from, Preetha? Like, you've been single for a while. Where do you just
where do
mentioned
I
that
get?
your strength, your strength from? Like, you've been single for a while. Sometimes you all become that emotionally vulnerable, right? You mentioned before that it might have been good to have a partner, and that's how the society projects the whole situation, that you
Yeah,
need
yeah.
a companion in life. You cannot stay alone all your life. So where do you get that strength from, that yes, I'm happy the way I am? What drives you?
Well, don't think I'm invincible. No, I'm not. Nobody is. I have my moments of deep depression.
Hmm.
And I have my dark depths, but I think those dark depths help me because you sometimes you like being in that dark space because you know that dark invariably leads you to some light. So I've
Yeah.
been in very very dark spaces, and from those dark spaces, I've known that in order to survive, I will have to pull myself out. And how
Hmm.
do I put myself out? By finding something to do that will immediately rejuvenate me. But more than that, I would not have had the luxury of in of spending time in these dark spaces if I did
Hmm.
not have the support of my family. My mother and my father both were huge strengths. I've lost both of them. My sisters, my sisters and friends. I am so they are my I'm actually a very poor person. I am constantly scraping my bank, the bottom of my bank, because half the time I'm not doing much. I'm roaming around here there. My wealth lies in my friends. I've got superb, brilliant, wonderful, and friends who go back 40 years, 50 years, uh, even 60 years. People who I've been born with and grown up together. They've stuck by me through thick and through thin. There was a huge scandal when in Calcutta, because at that time I was probably among my peer group the first person to have done something like this. And there was a scandal. And of course, there were many, many stories about me, including that I had eloped somewhere or that I was very ambitious, as if it was a crime for a woman to be
Yeah.
ambitious. Huh?
Mm,
I
mm.
was very, but it is just for these friends, my family, of course, but my friends who are today more than family to me, huh? And they know who they are. They have stuck by me through thick, thin, everything, and
God.
I get my strength from them.
You know what? I'm having mixed emotions. Ahitagni writes, good talk, Pritha ma'am. Ahitagni, thank you for tuning in. I'm having mixed emotions when, as I wrap up, I'm feeling inspired by you. I'm feeling happy that I came in touch with you, but I'm so jealous that you've got such a good network of people around you because in our generation, having that courage and that confidence to say that you've those many good friends is just rarity because this is a completely wired up generation. But I'll not talk about my story here. But Prita, feeling bad that I have to wrap up the
But
conversation here, but
it's
this was
reciprocal, Chris. You also have to
yes.
look out,
Yeah,
you know.
it is.
So
It
that's
is.
how it works.
It is. Prita, thank you so much for joining in. This was such a endearing and heartening chat to listen to you, to watch you, and I truly hope that I'll one day get to see you and meet you in person. Thank you for joining us, and I hope my listeners will love the chat that you've had, the love, the experiences that you've shared with us. And for all our listeners, if you've got anything to write or any feedback on Pritha's story, journeys, please write back to us, and we'll be looking forward. Thank you, Pritha, for joining.
Thank you.